Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, it's story time, boys and girls. I want to tell you all a little story. So this is probably going to be a bit rambly and all over the place because I don't want to have to edit it. I just want to convey a story here. Now, a lot of you know I love Smith & Wesson. But today's story is a perfect example of why I never get in bed with manufacturers. I don't get into advertising deals or kickback deals or even make really close friends with the people in the companies. Because then when they shit the bed and you want to tell people about it, you're either legally tied to not say anything or you feel like you're stabbing a friend in the back. And tonight is a perfect example of that. See, like I said, I love Smith & Wesson, but been having some problems with them, mainly with their customer service. Some of you might know I've been trying to get something as simple as a little bit longer screw for my Model 27 for the front sight screw. Just wanting to get, not the front sight, the rear sight, but the front screw. Been trying to get a little bit longer screw. That ain't worked. After 2 attempts and they've sent me the wrong piece each time. The first piece wasn't even close to what I was asking for. And they gave me a runaround to even do that both times. So haven't been happy with their customer service lately. And plus, I've been seeing some issues with some of the guns. You know, I always tell people I think Smith & Wesson M&Ps are better guns than Glocks, but I like Glocks better. But I've been seeing some problems in some of the newer Smith & Wessons, and I had that kind of confirmed for me today by an issue someone else is having with them and their customer service. And I wanted to relay that to you today. And it's not going to look good on Smith & Wesson, but I think most of you out there know I'm honest. I wouldn't make up something, and I also wouldn't call them on it if I hadn't, seen that they had been given plenty of opportunity to not shit the bed. But it all starts with a gentleman who bought a Smith & Wesson M&P and a box of Minuteman ammo. Well, he took the gun and the ammo to the range, and in like his first magazine, his gun exploded. It cracked the frame, blew the extractor out, just a pop. Just did some serious damage to the gun. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, but he's out of gun. So he comes back to Sporting Systems and he says, hey, my gun exploded and I don't know what happened. Apparently, he's a pretty reasonable guy. He said, I don't know if it was the ammo or the gun. He said, but I talked to Smith & Wesson and they said, it's the gun, it's the ammo, it's not the gun, which they're kind of trained to say it at first. And the guy at Sporting Systems, Dan, took it back and said, hey, took this guy, took his stuff, his information and everything, and took his ammo. He said, hey, do you have the rest of your ammo? And he did have the rest of the ammo. He said, well, we're going to test all this ammo. We're going to do an evaluation of your gun. We're going to find out what happened. And if it's our fault, we're going to make it right. They took back the ammo. There's still like 43 rounds left in the ammo box of 50. And they take every one of them. They measure them for length. They're all the right length. They measure them for weight. They weigh them. They're the right weight. They disassemble some. They have the right amount of powder in them. They're put together properly. So they're like, well, it's unlikely that it was the ammo. They also went and they checked the specifications on the powder they were using and the casings they were using. These were loaded to 70% of SAMI spec. And to get it to 100% SAMI spec, they would have to load, with the powder they're using, they would have to load the casing to 110%. Meaning you would have to have powder pouring out of the top that you somehow kept in there before you even put the round in, before you could ever make it to where it was even SAMI spec. So it wasn't possible to overcharge the round. The only thing that could have been would have been a severe setback. But since it was new ammo, not likely that there's a severe setback on a round. And then when they examined the casing, the guy was able to, retrieve the casing that had been the problem. It hadn't bulged and burst or anything like that. It blew the back off the casing, just sheared it off cleanly. Now, I don't know, a lot of you out there who've had experience with this might be saying, aha, right now, it sounds like to me the gun fired out a battery. Because I've seen that happen. I have too. That's the first thing I started thinking. When they told me, well, the back of the casing had come off. I said, that sounds like out of battery to me because there was nothing, the gun wasn't fully closed, the round wasn't fully chambered, and there wasn't enough resistance there to actually make all the energy go this way. So some of it went that way and blew the back of the round out, broke the frame, and blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, that's the same conclusion they came to, because they said, the round couldn't possibly be overloaded with the powder they were using and the casings they were using and the bullets they were using. It would have been almost impossible. So we started thinking, or they started thinking, I wasn't involved at this point, that's probably firing out a battery, because they had heard reports about some of the Smith & Wessons firing out of batteries, which is something I've heard too. Never given it much credence, because people say lots of things. So they went, they're a gun shop, so they tested, they got some snap caps, they started pulling 40 Smith & Wesson M&Ps out of their cabinet, which is what this was, I believe, or it might have been 9mm, but I think it was 40 Smith & Wesson. But they started pulling them out of the casing, out of the cabinet, and putting dummy rounds in them, putting them out of battery, and seeing if they would fire. 7 out of 10 guns would fire out of battery. In fact, I got a little image here of one. As you can see here, we stop it. The gun is not in battery yet. It has not fully closed. But if you pull the trigger, it fires. Meaning that if that slide was traveling and you pulled the trigger too quickly and it hadn't seated properly yet, it could still fire out of battery. That's what firing out of battery means. The slide has not traveled fully forward. The barrel is not locked into position. The round is not fully seated. The gun has not returned to its firing position or back to battery. So the gun not going into battery would have caused the exact amount of damage and kind of damage that we saw to his gun. The rounds themselves were very unlikely to have caused it. So they said, well, this is a situation where we have to send the gun back to Smith & Wesson. Well, they send it to Smith & Wesson. They take months to get back to them. And they're like, oh, we've examined the gun. Nothing wrong with the gun. It had to have been an ammo issue. And he comes back to the store and goes, here's what they sent me. They said it had to be ammo. It couldn't be the gun because the gun's fine. So the dealer contacts Smith & Wesson and says, hey, here's what I did. I tested all these guns. They're firing out of battery. The failure he had is typical of firing out of battery. The rounds are not powerful enough to have done this. And they said, well, it has to be the ammo because the gun's fine. And he said, well, how is the gun fine? It's got an exploded frame and the extractor's blown out. So how are you saying the gun is fine and operational? Which didn't make sense. To say the gun's fine, it's operating fine, it's the ammo's a problem. It's exploded. It's exploded, I guess the way I should say, since I'm from West Virginia. And then they said, oh, wait, what was your name? And he told them who he is. I'm a stocking dealer for Smith & Wesson. They're like, oh, we can't talk to you anymore because you're not the customer. We can only talk to the customer. And that was stupid. Since when do manufacturers not talk to stocking dealers? That's usually who they like to deal with instead of the customer, because the dealers are usually more knowledgeable on what the problem is than the customer. But it was very clear here. They knew that they didn't have much of a case for this gun actually failing because of ammo, that it likely fired out of battery, which, like I said, I've already demonstrated to you that they can. They demonstrated that they can. And not only can, but do. And that can be dangerous. And then here's one thing that the Smith & Wesson people said after he conveyed that to them that makes me very suspicious. They said it is okay for guns to fire out of battery as long as it's not more than 1/4 inch out of battery. Now, I don't know where they got this number from. Maybe they pulled it out of their ass, because I've never heard that ever. Never had a gunsmith tell me, if it fires out of battery, that's fine as long as it's not more than 1/4 inch. So none of that made sense to me, that as long as it's less than 1/4 inch, it's fine if it's firing out of battery. I have never heard that from any gun, never heard that from any manufacturer. So it made me feel like they just don't want to deal with this problem. They don't want to replace the gun. And even Sporting System, who is a big shop that does high volume traffic, and who said, hey, we can't carry your products anymore because you're putting out a product that could be unsafe and not standing behind it when there's a problem. They weren't even being like, we're going to expose your gun for being unsafe or anything like that. They were just like, hey, we sell a lot of your guns. We're a stocking dealer. Our contract's up. You just sent us a new one to sign. I can't sign this if you're not going to stand behind your products. I'm not going to sell it. And kudos on Sporting Systems for saying, even though these are high traffic, well-selling guns, I'm not going to stock them if I can't stand behind them and you don't stand behind them. And Smith & Wesson went, okay. That's basically all they did. They didn't take care of the guy who had the problem. They are not addressing the issue with the guns. And like I said, when I heard this, I was like, I've heard other people saying that their M&P is firing out a battery. But like I said, never put a lot of faith in it because people say a lot of things on the internet, as I said. But clearly, I think there's a potential issue with the M&Ps. With the firing out a battery. Now, that'll only be a problem if you're like really rapid firing, so most people will probably never notice it. But if you're doing rapid firing, you might notice it. And if it happens, you could very easily have a failure like this that would damage your frame, probably your extractor, blow out your magazine. That's typical of this type of failure. It's not like an exploding barrel. It's not a squib load. It's not a problem that starts in the barrel and spreads out. It actually begins behind the barrel because all the pressure goes out the back because the slide's not fully closed. So really, really unhappy with the way they dealt with the customer. And the fact that they won't even address the issue with a stocking dealer tells me there's a problem. It tells me they're going out of their way to not admit there's a problem with these guns. So, like I said, I'm not saying, they're all dangerous and don't shoot them. But if you're rapid firing, you might want to be aware of a potential issue. Test your gun. See if your gun will fire out a battery or not. I don't know if it's just new guns or what, but test it. Put a dummy round in there. Or if you're at the range or you're somewhere you can shoot, put a real round in if you want. Actually manipulate the slide to where it's out of battery. Don't let it go all the way forward and fire it. See if it'll fire. Actually, don't do that. Scratch that. I don't know what I was just thinking. You'll blow your fucking hands off. Do it with dummy rounds. Put dummy rounds in there. I don't know why I was just trying to kill all my viewers, or at least some of them, or injure them at least. Brain not working. But like I said, I don't want to edit this, so I'm going to leave it in there. But if you've got one, go check it to see, use a snap cap, see if it'll fire out a battery. And if it will, send it back to Smith & Wesson. Make them repair it. If this is a problem, it should get attention and it should be taken care of. And the very fact that they're not taking care of the one customer, even with the help of a stocking dealer, shows me their customer service is as bad as I think it is. Because like I said, after having months and multiple attempts to get a screw, and every time getting the runaround for about a half hour to 45 minutes on the phone, I taped it the first time, remember, and getting the runaround to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to send the gun back and have you refinish it every week because it's ruining the finish because you put too short of a screw in it, a known issue. Then they finally agreed to send me the screw. Still haven't sent me the right screw. Months later, I've had the gun probably a year now, still ain't been able to get the right screw. I'm not shooting it because I can't. So I just wanted to make people aware, like I said, right now, check your M&Ps for that potential issue. If you have that issue, if you can recreate it to where your gun's firing out a battery, send them back for repair. Make Smith & Wesson acknowledge this issue. And if you do actually shoot it and it explodes for you, keep in mind that this might be the issue. And don't let Smith & Wesson just blow you off like they did this guy. Take it to who you bought it from. Hopefully they will advocate for you because like I said, Smith & Wesson is really shit in the bed customer service wise. And it looks like they might have a potentially unsafe product out there that they just don't want to acknowledge. All right, everybody, that's it for me. That story went pretty long and I hope I didn't bum people out with it. But like I said, when a company does something that I think is wrong, even if I love that company and love their products, I think I have to call them out. It's kind of my obligation as someone who shares information with a lot of people. So I hope you can find that information useful. I hope you don't have a bad gun. And I definitely hope you don't do that stupid thing I said, like trying to get it to blow up, because that is not a good idea. Don't do that. But with that being said, I just want to say thanks for coming. I hope you come back again tomorrow. Until then, I want to remind everyone out there to always carry and stay safe until I see you again.